as Sophie's World, a novel about the history of philosophy. The myth, a precarious balance between the forces of good and evil. There was no letter for Sophie the next morning. All through the interminable day at school, she was bored stiff. She had to take care of extra nice to Joanna during the breaks. On the way home, they talked about going camping as soon as the woods were dry enough. After what seemed an eternity, she was once again at the mailbox. First, she opened a letter postmarked in Mexico. It was from her father. He wrote about how much he was longing for home and how for the first time he had managed to beat the chief officer at chess. Apart from that, he had almost finished the pile of books he had brought abroad with him after his winter leave. And then there it was, a brown envelope with her name on it. Leaving her school bag and rest of the mail in the house, Sophie ran to the den. She pulled out the new typewritten pages and began to read. The mythological world picture. Hello there, Sophie. We have a lot to do, so we'll get started without delay. By philosophy, we mean the completely new way of thinking that evolved in Greece about 600 years before the birth of Christ. Until that time, people had found answers to all their questions in various religions. These religious explanations were handed down from generation to generation in the form of myth. A myth is a story about the gods which set out to explain why life is as it is. Over a millennia, a wild profusion of mythological explanation of philosophical questions spread across the world. The Greek philosophers aimed to prove that these explanations were not to be trusted. In order to understand how the early philosophers thought, we have to understand what it was like to have a mythological pictures of the world. We can take some Nordic myth as example. There is no need to carry coals to Newcastle. You have probably heard of Thor and his hammer. Before Christianity came to Norway, people believed that Thor rode across the sky in a chariot drawn by two goats. When he swung his hammer, it made thunder and lightning. The word thunder in Norwegian "Thorden" means Thor's roar. In Swedish, the word for thunder is "eska", originally as "eka", which means God's journey over the heavens. When there is thunder and lightning, there is also rain, which was vital to the Winkies family. So Thor was worshipped as the god of fertility. The mythological explanation for rain was therefore that Thor was swinging his hammer, and when it rained, the corn germinated and thrived in the field. How the plants of the field could grow and yield crops was not understood, but it was clearly somehow connected with the rain, and since everybody believed that the rain has something to do with Thor, he was one of the most important of the Norse gods. There was another reason why Thor was important, a reason related to the entire world order. The Winkies believed that the inhabited world was an island under constant threat from outside dangers. They called this part of the world Midgard, which means the kingdom in the middle. Within Midgard lay Asgard, the domain of the god. Outside Midgard was the kingdom of Utgard, the domain of the treacherous giant, who resorted to all kinds of cunning tricks to try and destroy the world. Evil monsters like these are often referred to as the forces of chaos. Not only in the Norse mythology, but in almost all other cultures, people found that there was a precarious balance between the forces of God and evil. One of the ways in which the giant could destroy Midgard was by exerting Freyja, the goddess of fertility. If they could do this, nothing would grow in the fields and the women would no longer have children. So it was vital to hold this giant in check. Thor was a central figure in this battle with the giant. His hammer could do more than make rain. It was a key weapon in the struggle against the treacherous forces of chaos. It gave him almost unlimited power. For example, he could hurl it at a giant and slay them, and he never had to worry about losing it because it was always come back to him, just like a boomerang. This was a mythological explanation for how the balance of nature was maintained and why there was a constant struggle between good and evil. And this was precisely the kind of explanation that the philosopher rejected. But it was not a question of explanation alone. Mortals could not just sit idly by and wait for the gods to intervene when catastrophes such as drought or blood loomed. They had to act for themselves and struggle against evil. This they did by performing various religious ceremonies or rites. The most significant religious ceremony in Norse times was offering. Making an offering to a god had the effect on increasing that god's power. For example, mortal has to make offering to the gods to give them the strength to conquer the forces of chaos. They could do this by sacrificing an animal to the god. The offering to Thor was usually a goat. Offering to Odin sometimes took the form of human sacrifices. The myth that is best known in the Nordic countries comes from the Eddic poem, The Lay of Tharam. It tells how Thor, rising from sleep, finds that his hammer is gone. This makes him so angry that his hand trembles and his beard shakes. Accompanied by his heckman Loki, he goes to Freyja to ask if Loki may borrow her wings so that he can fly to Jotunheim, the land of the Can, and find out if they are the ones who have stolen Thor's hammer. At Jotunheim, Loki meets Thrym, the king of the giants, who should end up being to boast that he has hidden the hammer 7 leagues under the earth, and he had the goods will not get the hammer back until Thrym is given Freyja as his bride. Can you picture it, Sophie? Suddenly the good gods find themselves in the midst of a full-blown hostage incident. Giant has seized the god's most vital defensive weapon. This is a totally unacceptable situation. As long as the giant have Thor's hammer, total control over the world of gods and mortals. In exchange for the hammer, they are demanding Freyja, and but this is equally unacceptable. If the god have to give their goddess of fertility, she won't protect all life. The grass will disappear from the fields, and all gods mortal will die. The situation is deadlocked. Loki returned to Asgard, so the myth goes and tells Freyja to put on her wedding attire for sea. Alas, to wed the king of Giants? Freyja is furious and says people will think she is absolutely man crazy if she agrees to meet to marry a giant. Then the god Heimdall has an idea. He suggests that Thor dress up as a bride with his hair up and 2 stones under his tunic. He will look like a woman. Understandably, Thor is not wildly enthusiastic about the idea, but he finally accepts that this is the only way he will ever get this hammer back. So Thor allows himself to be attired in bridal costume, with Loki as his bridesman. To put it in present-day terms, Thor and Loki are the gods anti-terrorist squad, like distinguished as women. Their mission is to breach the giant stronghold and recapture Thor's hammer. When the gods arrive at Jotunheim, the Gant begin to prepare the wedding feast. But during the feast, the bride thought that is devours an entire ox and 8 salmon. He also drinks 3 barrels of beer. This astonished Theron. The truly identity of the commanders is barely nearly revealed, but Loki managed to avoid the danger by explaining that Freyja has been looking forward to coming to Jotunheim so much that she has not eaten for a week. When Theron lifts the bridal veil to kiss the bride, he is startled to find himself looking into Thor's burning eyes. Once again, Loki saves the situation by explaining that the bride has not slept for a week because she is so excited about the wedding. At this, Hiram commands that the hammer be brought forth and laid in the bride's lap during the wedding ceremony. Thor roars with laughter when he is given the hammer. First he kills Hiram with it, and then he wipes out the giant and all their needs. And thus the groomsman hostage affair has a happy ending. Thor, the Batman or James Bond of the god, has once again conquered the forces of evil. So much of the myth itself, Sophie. But what is the real meaning behind it? It wasn't made up just for entertainment. The myth also tried to explain something. Here is one possible interpretation. When a drought occurred, people sought an explanation of why there was no rain. Could it be the giant had stolen Thor's hammer? Perhaps the myth was an attempt to explain the changing seasons of the year. In the winter, nature dies because Thor's hammer rejoined, but in the spring he succeeded in winning it back. So the myth tried to give people an explanation for something they could not understand. But a myth was not only an explanation. People also carried out religious ceremonies related to the myth. We can imagine how people respond to drought or crop failure would be intact or drama about the events in the myth. Perhaps a man from the village would dress up as a bride with stones of bread in order to steal the hammer back from Jan. By doing this, people were taking some action to make it rain so the crops would grow in their field. There are a great many examples from other parts of the world of the way people dramatize their myth of the season in the order to speed up the process of nature. So far, we have only taken a brief glimpse at the world of Norse mythology, but there was countless myth about Thor and Odin, Freyr and Freyja, Hoder and Balder, and many other gods. Mythological notions of this kind flourished all over the world until philosophers began to tamper with them. A mythological world picture also existed in Greece when the first philosophy was evolving. The stories of the Greek god had been handed down from generation to generation for centuries. In Greece, the gods were called Zeus and Apollo, Hera and Athens, Dionysus and Asclepius, Heracles and Hephaestus, to mention only a few of them. Around 700 BC, much of the Greek mythology was written down by Homer and Hesiod. This created a whole new situation. Now that the myth existed in written form, it was possible to discuss them. The earliest Greek philosophers criticized Homer's mythology because the gods resembled mortals too much and were just egoistic and treacherous. For the first time, it was said that the myths were nothing but human notions. Our exponent of this view was the philosopher Xenophon, who lived from about 570 BC. Men have created a god of gods in their own image, he said. They believed the gods were born and have bodies and clothes and language just as we have. Ethiopians believe that gods are black and flat noses. Thracian images them to blue-eyed and fair-haired. If oxen, horses, lions could draw, they would depict gods that look like oxen, horses, and lions. During that period, the Greeks founded many city-states both in Greece itself and in the Greek colonies in southern Italy and Asia Minor, where all manual work was done by slaves, leaving the citizens free to devote all their time to politics and culture. In these city environments, people begin to think in a completely new way, purely on his own behalf. Any citizen could question the way society ought to be organized. Individual could thus also ask philosophical questions without recourse to ancient myth. We call this the development of mythological mode of thought to one based on experience and reason. So the aim of the early Greek philosophy was to find natural rather than supernatural explanation for natural process. Sophie left the den and wandered about the large garden. She tried to forget what she had learned at school, especially in science classes. If she had grown up in this garden without knowing anything at all about nature, how would she feel about the spring? Would she try to invent some kind of explanation for why it suddenly started to rain one day? Would she work out some fantasy to explain where the snow went and why the sun rose in the morning? Yes, she definitely would. She began to make up a story. Winter held the land in its icy grip because the evil Moriat had imprisoned the beautiful Princess Tikita in a cold prison. But one morning the brave Prince Veveto came and rescued her. Tikita was so happy that she began to dance over the meadows, singing a song she had composed inside the dank prison. The earth and the trees were so moved and that all the snow turned into tears, but then the sun came out and dried all the tears away. The birds imitated Sikita's song, and when the beautiful princess lay down her golden tresses and few locks of her hair fall onto the earth and turned into the lilies of the field. Sophie liked her beautiful story. If she had not known any other explanation for the changing season, she felt sure she would have come to believe her own story in the end. She understood that people had always felt a need to explain the process of nature. Perhaps they could not live without such explanation, and that they made up all those myths in the time before there was anything called science.